Hi, Josh. How are you?
Good morning. How are you? Of
Good. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
course. Happy to be here. John will be here in a moment. I'm just trying to track down Hayden, make sure he's logging in as well.
Okay. How have you been?
Good. It's been, interesting start to to the new year for everybody,
Yeah.
but all things considered, okay. How about yourself?
Good. Got some stuff to talk about. I'm psyched about it. Hi, Hayden. How are you?
Very good. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. This is like 5 years in the making, so I'm beside myself. I'm so thrilled.
I love the posters already, so we're on a good.
I got a quick little story for you that I promise you is unlike any interview, and it's like the coolest thing ever. Like it's really cool. You guys, if anybody, will really appreciate it.
I love
Sure.
it.
Okay.
I hear John logging in the other room.
Are you guys all in one like office area and then just have like different offices?
Usually. I'm at my house right now, but yeah, we have like 3 different offices that we Zoom from in the same complex.
Nice. And I love how you guys do a lot of your interviews together. I think that's really cool. Like it's just like you guys are like, I mean, obviously you work well independently, but like the fact that you're this like, I don't know, I like that. I think that's really cool.
We're kind of like one brain that finishes each other's sentences at this point.
You are like one entity. Yes, I would agree with that.
Well, the other thing is like we've over the years just had like a rotational system of like, okay, one person speaks, then the other. And so inevitably, like we answer the same question, just each one of us knows where the other one's going with everything. So
Yeah. I mean, there's not much you guys must hear in interviews that surprise you anymore, right? Like you guys are used to all of it. I would imagine after all of this.
Pretty much every now and then there's a question that, really in a fun way makes us go, oh, that's a really interesting question, because and like we're not prepared for it because we don't have the language of having answered a version of it before. So that is always enjoyable.
Hi, John. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
So the guys were talking about the poster I have in back of me, which I think is one of the most beautiful posters and a very underrated movie. And I don't have to convince you guys of that because you are on board with me. So I'm in this like Facebook Cobra Kai book and Reddit. They're like such great fans. They're so positive. And this one woman says, I went to the Goodwill and I found this jacket. And I was like blown away. I'm like, oh my God. I go, what do you want for it? It's like, I'm not looking to sell it. I'm building my man cave. I'm always adding to it. So long story short, the woman sends it to me. Super kind. This is a Karate Kid 3 set jacket, right?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Amazing.
Take a look at this. So her name is Hope R. Goodwin. She's a second unit director, I think, from all the movies, especially 3. And in such a small world, Rocky 4, I didn't even know. Like, this is all like random. Like, what a small world, and how cool is that? Like,
that's incredible.
I've never seen one like that. That's amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
we gotta tell Robert that we saw this.
Yeah,
Robert will appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so thrilled with it. But I have to say, so I'm not gonna lie to you guys. So it took me a while when Cobra Kai came out on YouTube, Red. I'm like, there's no way this works. Like, there's MASH worked, Friday Night Lights works. I'm like, there's no way. Everybody's in it. Everybody's talking about it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to try it. A year and a half later, I watched Ace Degenerate and then proceed to watch it 10 more times. Ace Degenerate, that episode alone might be the greatest piece of television I have ever seen. Like, because it's been forever since we've seen this. I feel like Ace Degenerate could have been its own movie. I feel like if you guys went, 120 minutes with it, did you guys fall in love with Ace Degenerate as much as I did after you saw it completed?
I mean, yes. I mean, Ace Degenerate that was the dream. That was like, we labored over that. I mean, any piece of television that has, a drunk Johnny Lawerence watching Iron Eagle is automatically like top 5. And then the rest of the episode is what kind of makes it the number 1 piece of entertainment of all time.
Yeah, it's what he's driving, what he's listening to. Bless you, Hayden, by the way. But like, it's just like, it's, Hayden, you guys, Josh, you feel the same way about that?
I mean, it was the realization of what we wanted to do with the show, and to be able to kind of lean in a as artistic a way, but as a audience orientation way, to kind of see where we're at was the most fun.
Yeah. Go ahead, Hayden. I'm sorry.
No. I remember, we were able to get into the Karate Kid archives and find new footage where we were able to cut into a close-up shot of Johnny's face getting hit. And that was kind of like, for us, the moment where we shift perspective from the Karate Kid. So it was just like, we didn't know that we had that footage or the ability to do that. But it was this fun moment of like, you know what, let's bring people back into this world, but then like right here, take this fork in the road. And like now, while we're hearing Daniel being celebrated, it's just like we're focusing on this guy who's like lying on the mat. And then everything else from there was a combination of, something that we've always wanted to do with, like John mentioned Iron Eagle, like seeing him, that was when we knew that it didn't matter if everyone else liked it. We were like, this is the best thing that we've ever seen, because it was a guy watching Iron Eagle and a poignant moment from Iron Eagle really affecting his life. And we were playing it so dry, and real. And it is real. It's possible that you could be like drunk in the middle of the night watching like an old movie and getting caught up in it. And it was just everything about it, hit on all the cylinders that we hoped.
And it's amazing how you did it too, because it's like you made him politically incorrect as much as possible. He couldn't have been more out of touch with what to say and what not to say, but he's so damn lovable. Like I don't know how you pulled that off. Like it's, and if anybody want to share any insight to that, because it's so tasteful the way it works. He's so like out of touch, but it's just, I don't know. I don't know how you guys, how you weave your magic. But
I think it starts with Billy Zabka himself.
Yeah.
I'll just say, like, we were all huge fans of Billy Zabka because even though he was playing an asshole a lot of times in the 80s, not just in Karate Kid, he was entertaining and he was enjoyable. And we all knew him as, the bully from the Karate Kid. So even though he's a villain, so much time has passed that there's just this affection for him, I think, to start. And then from there, it's making him, you've shifted the perspective, as Hayden was saying, where, you're seeing him as a loser immediately. And you can't help but feel bad for somebody who's kind of going through the stuff that he is, just in general. And like, he's a loser in like a likable way. People like the drunk who picks up the beer that he had the night before and does it again and spits it out and then continues drinking it. Like,
yeah.
It's like, it's all those like little touches that are kind of comedic that make you enjoy him. And also just sort of like, you show that billboard with Daniel LaRusso up on the billboard, like, in the ridiculous pose. And there's a little bit of like, screw that guy kind of feeling, kind of thing. And you feel, the bottom line is, I think we put a concerted effort in the early going of making sure that you feel for him really quickly. And also like the things like, his first line on the show is "Great, more immigrants," which is not a positive line. That's just something where you hate, like most of us think that like his that energy isn't like, it's not likable, but it felt real for that guy.
Yeah.
And there's something that's real about it. And this guy's clearly like a loser and in pain. So he's going to say things like that. And it's like Gran Torino though. It's like,
that's a good one.
It has that element of like, he doesn't know any better kind of thing. So that's why he's being a jerk. And then it gives him a place to go.
I'll just say that one thing about like Gran Torino, Archie Bunker, and Johnny Lawerence is like we give them their wins and their losses in terms of like the comedy. So like we made it where Johnny is a little bit trapped in the 80s. And so like maybe that's why if you're somebody who doesn't like him or doesn't like his sentiments, you kind of like feel like, okay, well, this is a guy who's just like out of touch and we're kind of making fun of him. But then also he has his moments where he's like, no, my old school kind of attitude is better than, the crap you're listening to today. And so it kind of balances out where we're not just trashing on this guy, but we're also not, saying, oh, this guy's views are right. So it's kind of balanced.
You know what it is too, Hayden? It's almost like, remember in elementary school when you bury those time capsules and then like 40 years later you unearth it? I feel like that's what Johnny Lawerence was, right? Because I feel like in elementary school we did that, but then like the audience is like, we unearthed this guy. Like, and everything you're saying is all clicking and making sense. I don't know if Josh, if there's anything you wanted to add to that, but great points.
No, it's he said it all. That's really the perspective we came with.
Is it a bit of travesty that Johnny Lawerence or none of the other actors have won an Emmy? I think it's kind of, I don't want to call it gross, but I feel like it gives me like Walking Dead vibes in that sense, where it's like you see so many wonderful performances and it's like, what are we doing here? Like millions of people love these characters. Like how
I think we came out on YouTube Red at the time, which became YouTube Premium. But, even in that switch from Red to Premium, it wasn't like it was the biggest stage in the whole world. It felt like a giant stage because it's YouTube, but it was like it was like a hidden room within YouTube to watch the show. So it didn't capture, while it hit with a cult audience at the time, it didn't capture the industry's attention. From the people voting on awards. It just wasn't on the radar enough. It felt like this niche thing over here. And when it made the jump to Netflix, like there was that moment where the show did get some Emmy attention and did get nominated for Best Comedy, and the show has consistently gotten nominated for stunts, but to not have those acting nominations when you're seeing that kind of performance again and again and again, and it's unlike any other half-hour show. I mean, the half-hour comedy category has become something unique unto itself of the times right now, where we are not we are not living in Three's Company and and Different Strokes, and it's not that anymore. It's become very nuanced. It's become very dramatic. But this show also has, the tragedy of, the past and action and, multi-generational stories where you're having pain delivered unto you from, 40 years ago and your mentor, and you're paying that forward in a way that you're trying not to the next generation. It's got colors to play that are expertly, plucked by all of the, the cast. I think it's just, it's just the, when you're launching a show, that's kind of your opportunity to be the new and fresh, thing on the block in terms of like, ooh, like, is this thing going to get attention?
Right.
And I think now we're at an interesting point also, whereas the show is sunsetting and is getting the reception it is from the fandom and the world. That perhaps hopefully there's some justice for some of these performers like Billy, who are just swinging for the fences and hitting them out of the park.
Especially his work on the last 3 episodes alone. Like, come on! Like,
yeah. Another tricky thing about our show is that we have 2 leads. So when like things like the Emmys, you're only allowed to vote for one, and it's like Sopranos, you have Tony Soprano, and Breaking Bad, you have Walter White, and we like Johnny and Daniel are so big on this show. One's the Karate Kid, and the other, so it's like it's tricky, but at least you would hope that you'd get the nomination. So.
Yeah, we've all. I think we're close to the same age. All of us. We grew up in the same. I think we like the same things. Has it ever become surreal for you? We're like, holy shit, we did it! Like we did it! Like this is freaking great! Look what we've created! Look what we've accomplished! Like. I would be beside myself. I mean, I know you guys worked your asses off. It's not like this gift came along, but like your hard work paid off, like almost in a nostalgic way, which not many people can say, right, in your field.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say it's funny because my parents love the show, and my kids love the show, so it's nice to see people of different generations loving it. But my parents sent me last night some reaction videos that they were watching. And there was this compilation thing that they sent me that was the scene between Johnny and Kreese, that scene in episode 613, where that sort of like big moment between the two of them. And I saw 50, it was like a compilation. So it was like 15 different groups of people watching that scene. And it's just like every last one of them was like tears, crying, very emotionally invested, just like all in for it. And then there was another compilation video of like when they take Cobra Kai back, and everyone's like, hell yeah, like, jumping up and down and screaming and just going insane for it. And it just sort of like in that moment, I was like thinking to myself, I was like, wow, like we've brought people on this journey that really connects with them, that connected with us. The reason we make the show is because this is what we wanted to see. This is like, we're emotionally invested in it. Like, you know, we're putting these characters through a journey. And as we're reaching the the final episodes of the journey, people who've been along for the ride it impacts their emotions in a major way, whether that's tears or whether that's fist pumps or whether that's laughter. And it did kind of hit me a little bit. It was funny that you're bringing this up now, because like last night I was like, wow, like we did it. You know, we really did it.
Yeah. You guys ever wonder what Pat Morita would have thought of your work and everything that happened here? You ever wonder what he would have thought? I think about that a lot, and I have nothing to do with the show. Like, I just like, Pat Morita would have loved this. He loved being Mr. Miyagi. He would have loved your hard work, Josh, Hayden, and John. He would have loved all of this.
I mean, we loved Pat. I mean, like, we grew up with this movie, and you can't not, have that affinity and that, elevation of Pat Morita because of Mr. Miyagi, but, also because of all the comedy that he, did over the years. Like, we started our careers and spent, more of our careers writing, just straight up comedy before we got into Cobra Kai. And that was Pat also. And all the stories we've heard of Pat over the years of just being the jokester and how fun he was to be around. We didn't get that opportunity. We didn't get to meet and know John Avildsen. We didn't get a chance to meet and know Jerry Weintraub. There's a lot of those people at the beginning of this journey that were part of the ingredients of why this movie resonates and became timeless, and is something that generations after us will enjoy. But we are so fortunate to have met and know and become friends with Robert Mark Kamen, who wrote the original movies and kind of created the character of Miyagi and molded it around his senseis. So we are thankful for the pieces of the past that we can still hold on to, and we just revere the ones that we can't.
Right. Did you find that in season 6, because the cast grew, right? Did you feel like because characters like Kenny, who are primary focus characters, did you feel like the cast got so big because there's so many stories going on? Did you feel like it was hard to get them involved as much as you would have liked?
That's always been the case. With each season, it's been so many more threads in the overall weave. But we knew that going into the 6th season that we wanted to kind of end the way that we began. And if you look at like the first season of the show, it's like there's not a lot of Daniel in the first episode. There's barely any Miguel or Robbie. It's like all from Johnny's perspective. And then the second episode, we kind of see more Daniel's perspective. And it's just like episode to episode 3, you get to see more Miguel and Robbie. And so we were expanding the point of view of the show where you could jump into different characters over the course of the first season. And then, each season we'd introduce new characters that you could jump into. So by the time you had the 6th season, there were like 12 characters or 15 characters that we've like been on a journey with in given episodes, that we've like followed and been in their home life. And the trick is, on the one hand, if we just say like, oh, you know what, let's just like not focus on Kenny and Anthony or do anything like that, people will be like, what happened to them? Because we actually set them up. But on the other hand, we wanted to kind of wind those characters. That's just part of the reason why we wanted 15 episodes, is so that we could take some of those, more recent characters that we introduced along the way and like kind of pay off those storylines earlier, so that the last 5 episodes, it's more focused on, the characters from the first season.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Do you guys feel like, I always feel like Johnny Lawerence's storyline in Cobra Kai is what Luke Skywalker was to Star Wars. Do you see it that way? Is it his story? Is Cobra Kai Johnny Lawerence's story?
I'll let Hayden answer this.
Well, it's a little different because, I just think that this is just more of an ensemble, but it begins and ends with his story. This is, like I said from the very beginning, we're shifting perspective to Johnny, and then once we travel down that path, we're now in the world, and we could follow whoever. But it's how you're it's whose shoes you're in at the very beginning that sets the tone for the entire series. And so from the very beginning, it has been, the Johnny's redemption as the A story.
Right. Any Karate Kid callbacks you wanted but didn't make it in? Any callbacks?
I mean, the biggest thing is just Dutch appearing on the show. I mean,
Yes.
that was like he was one of our favorite characters. We always talk about, like, before we made the show, when we were meeting with writers or department heads or things like that, if someone brought up Dutch unprompted in a meeting, we knew those were our people. Like, that was sort of our litmus test of somebody who knew the movies well enough and knew kind of like the kind of elements that were awesome and ridiculous and kind of like had the spirit of kind of why Cobra Kai, why we're making the show, is like, it's like what happened to those bullies in your high school. And, over the years, there were a lot of talks with Chad McQueen about bringing his role, returning to acting. He had some race car accidents over the years and had sort of retired from acting and was not interested in really being on camera. And there were some opportunities on and off. And then by the end, he was actually interested and eager to do it because his family loved the show and he had such love for Billy Zabka and thought it would be a fun thing to do. So we actually got to sit down and meet with him before season 6. Unfortunately, his health was not great by the time we needed him, and he couldn't be there. So that's our biggest regret is that never worked out.
I think one of the magical things you guys did was you connected generations, right? There's kids that are 8th grade, 6th grade, 5th grade now that we could still talk the same language. What show can you do that with? One of the episodes that people our age and Gen X can appreciate more than any other one is Take a Right, right? I love the fact that Bob Garrison, like, he's now in the Miyagi. Well, he was always in the Miyagi-verse, but now he's like, we brought him forward. I don't know. For me, being an old school guy, that was an extra special episode. Do you guys feel the same way?
That felt different. It was also because we brought those guys in and, they were in town for a certain number of time. And as, when you're shooting, storylines that way, you're not going to leave those guys in a hotel for, half a week and shoot a day with them and then spend a day over here. You're going to do all that stuff together. So there was basically 4 days where, we had been making, Cobra Kai for a year and a half at that point. There were 15 episodes that came before that. And then all of a sudden you're spending a whole week just in that, old OG Cobra, universe where you're in a bar and you're talking about Kreese and the old days and they're on motorcycles and they're in the woods and they're by a fire and there's not a kid in sight. And it felt like we'd stepped into this other, like, it was like another Super Mario level of the universe where, we were suddenly outside, the high school storyline, outside the love triangles. We were just with this group of old friends. And I think it was like the perfect moment in the show because Johnny, doesn't have any friends. We never saw Johnny hang out, and get a beer with a buddy. And all of a sudden here is, this kind of food for the soul. And here's the bar fight they need to feel like men again. And here's the conversations that they need to have about moving forward. And here's the goodbye they're glad that they'll have. And it was this magical week of the weather was right. You're outside. It's crisp. It's fall. You're in the woods. Like Rob Garrison is delivering that, tremendous performance by the fireside, about time. And, to us, it's this big, meta comedy also of like, we're playing Tommy is dying and Tommy is going to end up in a body bag. And he's the guy who says, get him a body bag in the movie. And unbeknownst to everybody, Rob Garrison had health problems and was going to pass away, but nobody knew. It wasn't shared with us. It's unclear if he knew to the degree that he was sick, versus actually, having knowledge of, that he was going to die. But it felt cathartic for everybody. I know for him, for the other guys, it was this, okay, like we're getting this chance to kind of acknowledge, like we're getting a chance to put like a period or an ellipses or something on what happened back in '84, and it was exactly what we wanted it to be and to feel like.
I wanted to end with two final things. The first of which is spinoffs, right? The going favorite, the odds-on money favorite right now is a Dimitri Hawk spinoff. If it was up to me, I want to see Johnny Lawerence be a dad. I'm being biased. You don't have to say, what you're actually doing, but like, what are some other potential ones? What is there a direction you're leaning? Anything you wanted to say in that regard?
I'll just say we love the world and are open-minded to a lot of different types of stories, a lot of different types of formats. So for example, Cobra Kai itself is a totally different format from the Karate Kid. That was a movie. We're a series. This has like a comedic edge to it that the originals didn't have. We've talked about, the Miyagi backstory, for example. But like when we think about that and the details from his life, that's something that has, a lot of big, heavy weight to it when you're talking about internment camps and World War II. And so, you think about, is there like that kind of prestige show and like what kind of format would be right for that? At the same time, we like the idea of animation in this world and just like, maybe take something and do something that we couldn't do live action because we were always so limited with our budget on Cobra Kai, and just take one little aspect of the show and play with that. And, when it comes to all the characters on Cobra Kai, there's like being able to go on any of those threads, from the younger characters to the older characters. And things that feel more like Cobra Kai, things that maybe feel more unique. It's a big, broad answer, but the fact is, we feel like there's a lot of different possibilities, and it's kind of a combination of what we want to do, what Hollywood is willing to pay us to do, and then some logistics. So our hope is to be able to do it. But I mean, I'll just say I always use Dexter as the example of a show that I liked. I would say most fans really didn't like how it ended, but then it's come back in a lot of iterations. And sometimes just being away a couple of years from a show, you could just kind of relaunch. And not saying that, it's just like, let's just do Cobra Kai again, but we do love Cobra Kai, and so anything is possible.
How about in the realm of like a Back to the Future or a Ferris Bueller's Day Off? All right, guys, I admit it, I'm prying here. Okay, so is there anything that like you could share on that? Because I love your choices. I'm like, that's genius. Like, I was talking to Richard on Facebook, and I was like, I'm trying to get stuff out of him. What do you guys think? Like, is there something that is out there that you could float? Anything?
Well, I mean, we are developing a Ferris Bueller spinoff movie.
Right.
That is called Sam and Victor's Day Off. And I can't say much. All I could say is we just got a new draft in that was phenomenal. So like we're optimistic on that project. That doesn't mean it's happening, but I will say that the latest draft of it was really, really, really good. And just we read it and smiled the entire time. So we're very excited about that, and we'll see what happens there. As for Back to the Future, I mean, the Bobs have made it clear that they have no interest in continuing that legacy. The characters Jake and Jeremy, played by Josh and I in the final moments of Cobra Kai, had their pitch as to their alternate 1985 spinoff idea. If the Bobs watch that and they're like, hey, maybe we should at least talk to these guys, then we could have that. But we don't expect Back to the Future to be something that we're tackling in the future.
I'll end with this. So we probably saw Karate Kid around the same time the first time. It plays like a symphony. It's a work of art. We talk about Bill Conti's soundtrack. Daniel Sees the Bird. It hits you even in a rewatch. The cinematography, it hits so hard. Do you remember what you loved most your first watch?
It's really tough. I mean, our first watch of the Karate Kid, I was 6.
Your first memorable watch, because I was 9. So like your first, like the one thing you've taken away when you got to that age where it's like, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
It was all magic. I mean, like I have visceral memories of both, back-to-back years, the Karate Kid and Back to the Future, seeing those in the theater and feeling like these were becoming my favorite movies of all time. immediately, and and VCRs were happening around the same time, and you're like, wait a minute, I could have that, I could watch it at home. And I just remember it's all, I mean, it's everything that the filmmakers want you to feel. Like that music is hitting in a way with that montage when you get to that tournament where you're full of adrenaline as a kid, and you're in Daniel's shoes. You've lived a whole movie in fear of the Cobra Kais and feeling this would be horrible if these bigger guys who know karate were beating you up constantly. And thank God he has Mr. Miyagi. And is he going to make it? Josh,
Bill Conti is known for Rocky, but can't you make the argument that his score with the Karate Kid might be better? Is that crazy?
They're both bangers. I mean,
well, it's more varied.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's more varied. Like Rocky has like two things,
right.
Like he has, there's more,
he's doing more Vivaldi in the Karate Kid, where it's like, oh, I didn't realize this was possible. But yeah, I mean,
and he's also kind of doing some like bad boy 80s synth in
like
it.
Synth, yeah.
It's like, so he's doing a lot more stuff in it.
Well, he was also blending, his cues with Survivor songs. That they were kind of blurring the line a little bit between soundtrack and score, which was hadn't really been happening yet.
Yeah. Well, you guys, I thank you so much for your time. Josh, I will say this last thing to you. Hot Tub Time Machine, if it was released 30 years prior, we'd be talking about it like it's a John Hughes classic. It's one of our last great movies. I'm going to tell you that right now. Josh, Hayden, and John, I think the world of you. Keep up your great work. And thank you for this time. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.